Welcome to DocTalk with your host, Brent Leavitt. And DocTalk with Brent is sponsored by Battleborn Financial.
Hi, welcome to DocTalk with Brent Leavitt. I am the certified financial planner and owner of Battleborn Financial Advisor and health insurance brokerage here in Pahrump, Nevada. And we are doing our wonderful episodes, meeting and interviewing all of our doctors here and primary care doctors here in Pahrump. And today we're actually joined by Dr. Tali Arik. Did I say your name right?
Yes, that's correct.
Actually right. Okay. He's actually joining us from Pahrump Cardiology. And we're going to talk a little bit today about why did I pick a cardiologist. And it's not that he's a cardiologist per se. He's a cardiologist, but he also has a primary care practice here in town as well. So we kind of get two worlds with Dr. Arik. And I just want to reiterate too, if you guys have questions or anything on the show, if you want to schedule an appointment to talk about your health insurance needs, you have our phone number on the bottom for both me and Dr. Arik. They'll be screaming across there. We have access, both Pahrump Cardiologists and even Battleborn Financial. We have an access to make appointments online. You can schedule all your appointments there. You can also call the offices and talk to an actual live person and say, hey, I want to schedule an appointment with you. I want to meet with you. I want to talk about my healthcare needs. I want to get to know you better. And I recommend you heavily do that. Dr. Arik has been practicing here in Pahrump. You said you've been coming here since 2005. You said,
correct.
Right?
Yes.
And I think that's one of wonderful things is one of the staples here in town is the fact we've had a doctor here. I think we definitely can claim you that as maybe you're almost a native now. You've been here longer than I have too. I've been here since 2005, but you know. But yeah, Pahrum's wonderful to have you, and the fact that we have a cardiologist that's here. A lot of people have heart conditions. We have a lot of issues with people with chronic, with a lot of people that have strokes and TIAs and different things like that affect their bodies and heart issues. In fact, my dad, I didn't tell you earlier, but my father actually is having some heart stuff going on, and it's been kind of interesting to see that happen in my own family.
And I think you need a checkup.
Yeah, we do.
Preventive screening.
I probably do. Well, he's not my biological father. We're going to go into that later, but but
you need it anyway.
Yeah, I always need to do that with him. And the cool thing is, Dr. Arik. So he's actually contracted with through formerly Healthcare Partners is now Intermountain Healthcare, and he's actually been with them for quite a while. He broke away just a couple years ago.
It was last year. May
1st. May 1st last year. And you actually became Pahrump Cardiology and your own entity.
Correct.
You're still within that facility off of Loop Road.
Correct.
And then you opened up just recently another office off of Cavada.
I did.
And where you actually have Melanie Lentz and I can't remember the other.
Marquita Arajo.
I can't say her name, so I didn't want to even try to butcher that one. Where they actually help handle primary care and stuff like that as well. So and with Healthcare Partners, you actually contract with the Humana HMO.
Correct.
And you also take, I believe you just barely did you get contracted recently with the Humana PPO as well?
The insurances that we are on are easier to know by the ones we're not on. So
right, exactly.
Cigna and Blue Cross and HPN are pending, as is the Humana PPO.
Right.
But everything else we're on.
So it's awesome. So
we're not on P3.
We're not on P3
so
yet.
Not on P3.
So really right now it's like a lot of the Aetna stuff right now. If you like them, if you're on,
United.
if you're especially not healthcare, Sierra Health and Life.
Yes.
I think that scratches
Medicare,
surface the majority of our people. Yeah, Medicare, Medicaid, and things like that. I think a lot of people like the fact that you also take the Humana stuff because it's a lot of their HMO. It's a zero copay to see you and zero for the doctors and stuff. So a lot of times it's really kind of cool. And then tell us a little bit more about Dr. Arik. I want to talk at the beginning of the segment about just the practice and how you're doing things, and then maybe the second segment we'll talk a bit more about the primary care side. I think I want to talk about that as well, how that's changing you. But on your primary practice, which is the cardiology, you mentioned doing a lot with your imaging. Want to talk a little more about how you're doing imaging and things like that, and how you're different than everybody else in the world and stuff like that.
We actually are different than almost every practice in the United States. Because we have imaging modalities that 99% of cardiologists in the United States do not have access to. And so those things are available here in Pahrump. So I think people pretty much know that imaging is a huge part of cardiology, and the heart is amazing in that there's so many ways you can look at it. You can look at it electrically through an EKG or a monitor. You can look at the structure or function, evaluate the pressure in the heart, the output of the heart, lots of other things using ultrasound, or we call it echocardiography, specific to the heart. Then another modality is assessing the coronary circulation and heart attack risk for sudden death, by looking for coronary artery disease or blockages in the coronary arteries. In the early years of cardiology, the only way to do that was to do a direct angiogram, obviously a hospital-based or cath lab-based invasive study. Nuclear cardiology came along in the 70s. At that time, it was really poorly developed. Like all technologies, it's progressed, and it is now the state of the art for looking for coronary disease or flow abnormalities in the heart without doing an angiogram. And there are two ways to do that. One is a traditional nuclear medicine stress test, which can be done either with walking on a treadmill or using medication to relax the heart arteries and maximize flow, and then image with a nuclear medicine. One level beyond that is what's called PET cardiac imaging. A lot of people know PET scans through its use for cancer imaging, but there's also a PET cardiology test to look for coronary blood flow, and it's actually more accurate than doing an invasive angiogram, because not only can you identify blockages in the arteries, some people don't have actual blockages but have other flow abnormalities in the heart muscle. PET can identify that. It's a better test because it takes only 30 minutes instead of 2 hours. A lot of people are concerned about radiation exposure, rightly so. PET scanning has 1/10 of the radiation exposure as a standard nuclear test. And in addition, the images are simply better. My doctors in Las Vegas that I refer patients to for invasive procedures are thrilled to see PET scan images, and they correlate and predict really well where blockages happen to be. The other thing about my imaging that no one has in Las Vegas, I know this because I know this, because they want this but don't have it, all of our images are uploaded to a cloud-based server that's encrypted and HIPAA compliant. So if I want to share images with a doctor in Las Vegas, get a second opinion, or send images before the patient has their procedure, whether it's heart surgery or an angiogram, I can send a link to the patient's images. They can view those on their cell phone, on a laptop. We can talk about it. They can see what the patient's situation is before they actually go in and do the work. And they're always thrilled at the quality of the images. So these are things we're doing that no one does in Las Vegas. The PET camera, there are only 250 of them in the United States. There's only 3 places in Nevada you can get a PET scan. And one is Mountain View Hospital, one is at Renown in Reno, and one's in Pahrump.
So if you're in Vegas, you want to come over the hump to Pahrump to get your cardiology camera.
Actually, ideally, and I do have a lot of patients coming from Las Vegas for imaging.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who would have thought that Pahrump would have been this hotbed for wonderful cardiology care, right?
There's just so much that can be done. And I think for too long, our community has been regarded as second class in terms of services available. And I think with the arrival of healthcare partners in 2008, 9, 10, that started to change, and changed significantly. Now you have other organizations coming into town providing a higher level of service than people had here before 2010, organizations like P3. And I think from the specialty side, for years, we've just had specialists come, see patients, go back to Las Vegas. I was doing that until 2012, actually, until I moved here in 2014 and began working here full-time. But this is the largest community in the United States that does not have what I would call a resident medical community, where the doctors and the paraprofessionals live and work in the community. And in fact, I'm the only medical specialist who lives in all of Nye County.
Wow, that's amazing. So
that's my commitment.
Yeah, and your commitment too. You were talking earlier about how different your office is, where it's like all of your equipment you mentioned is all clean and tested by the state, has the state seals and stuff on there.
Yes, it does.
And which nobody else really even in this town, the small little mom and pop clinics don't really do that kind of stuff. It's hard to,
I mean, our blood pressure cuffs are calibrated by a man who comes in and does state inspections. All the electricals, the EKG equipment, the pulse oximeters, everything is inspected, verified, and has the little green seal on it.
Yeah. I mean, not only do you do the bare minimum, but you do above and beyond what's required of you. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about going to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
My other question was going to be about, who we talked earlier about the fact that most people, they don't know that they need a cardiologist until it's almost too late. They've figured out now the heart stuff has happened now that it's too late now. I've got the blockages, now you've had the TIA or the stroke, whatever happened. How do we know when we need to see you? Like, when's a good time, and how often do we need to see the cardiologist? How do we get my primary care doctor to say, hey, listen to me, I need to see a cardiologist at least once in my lifetime to find out what's going on with me, and so I don't have any issues? How do they know?
So there are, I think, to step back, there's an organization that dates back to early in the post-war years called the American College of Cardiology, which was initially started jointly between German and American cardiologists. It evolved into our primary professional organization called the American College of Cardiology. And they've really been a leader in creating the professional journals that disseminate information from studies, from commentaries, editorial writing. They put on conferences, both in the United States and worldwide, continuing medical education. And as it bears on this issue, for every cardiologic entity, whether it's a heart rhythm problem, heart attack care, surgery, valve disease, prevention, early detection, there are practice guidelines. And anyone can go online to acc.org and look up clinical practice guidelines. So there is a guideline that offers best practice advice for assessing people at various stages in their life for cardiovascular disease. And we say cardiovascular, we're talking not just the heart, but the carotids, the aorta, leg arteries, the whole gamut of cardiovascular phenomena issues. So your question is when, and what's worth pointing out here is the traditional model has always been assess risk factors, cholesterol, diabetes, smoking, activity, weight, family history, and determine who is at higher than average risk and test them. The problem with that approach, as we have found, is that many people who have high risk actually have little to no disease. Welcome genetics. And many people who seem to have very little risk end up having a heart attack or stroke. So the risk factor approach is helpful because it leads to a higher, shall we say, hit rate when you do screening and testing. But in the end, at some point, everyone should have at least some evaluation. Okay.
I'm going to cut you off right there. We're going to go to break.
Okay.
We're going to have a few seconds and go to a commercial break, and we'll be back and we'll talk more about this. Thank
you. We will return with more Doc Talk after these messages. Welcome to Doc Talk with your host, Brent Leavitt. And Doc Talk with Brent is sponsored by Battleborn Financial.
Welcome back to Doc Talk. I'm Brent Leavitt, owner of Battleborn Financial Advisor and health insurance brokerage here in town. Just a reminder, we help people with, if you need help with your health insurance needs and getting to see your doctors and things like that, please call the office on the bottom of the screen there, the phone number there. And also you can go on our website, battlebornfinancialadvisor.com, and you can actually book an appointment online, and you can even do, like, we're doing telephone appointments, things like that, available to, especially during pandemic time frame and anytime. Open enrollment again is starts in October, but we do have time, and people can make changes at any time throughout the year depending on their situations, and we can help you assess that. Again, today we're with Dr. Tali Arik over at Cardiology. And his phone number's on the line there, right there as well. Yeah. He also allows online booking. They're probably one of the most advanced offices I've seen here in town when it comes to keeping up on the trends, keeping everything clean, making sure everything's exactly right that it should be, and up with technology trends and getting to see him. And before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about why do you need to see a cardiologist. And we were talking just during break is the fact that, and I noticed too, a lot of my clients, I've had people just all of a sudden randomly drop, unfortunately they lose their spouse because of a heart attack, stroke. just all of a sudden didn't expect anything. They're living a normal life, then all of a sudden they lose their spouse. And I notice, I don't know if it's men are usually the ones that are typically the ones dying is more often than women are, but I know it happens to women all the time too. But we're talking about prevention, how to know when to see your cardiologist, when to start seeing the signs, what kind of things are there. So let's talk a little bit more about that, what you were talking to me earlier about. So.
Certainly. Well, let's create a background perspective on heart disease in the United States. And now, given that the world has pretty much caught up to the United States and Europe, Australia, New Zealand in terms of lifestyle, access to good food, health care, etc. When I say U.S., it really is worldwide because infectious disease until recently was the #1 cause of death worldwide, but now it is cardiovascular disease, and certainly is in the United States because of awareness of cancer and promotionals for many years, the war against cancer and campaigns. Sometimes heart disease is not at the forefront of consciousness for people, but it is the fact that about twice as many people die in the United States yearly of heart disease than cancer, approximately 1 million deaths a year. The frightening part of that is that about a third of those deaths are what are called sudden cardiac death, SCD, the definition of which is death that is not preceded by clear-cut symptoms or within 24 hours of the onset of, in retrospect, what might be thought of as symptoms such as shortness of breath, indigestion, severe fatigue, sweats, chest burning. Sometimes the symptoms are not just, oh, I'm having chest pain. In fact, I would say that is the minority of cases. So this sudden death piece is tremendous because we see this in people aged 30s, although infrequently in that younger group, on up. So think about the toll that takes when someone is just simply suddenly taken away from life. It affects family, it affects community, it affects economic productivity, our tax base. Think of all the creative people, hardworking people. People are just enjoying a retirement, or the common thing, which you've heard, you know about, person works, plan, save, which is what you help people with, among other things. And then within 6 months or a year, they die, suddenly, typically. So when you look at these people, for example, autopsy data we have available shows that the overwhelming majority of these people, at least 90%, perhaps more, 95%, have at least one severe artery blockage that was undetected during life. So the inescapable conclusion of that is people need to be screened. A simple carotid ultrasound will detect mild plaque. Well, if you have mild plaque, you're at risk for a heart attack or sudden death. Down the line, of course, depending on how severe that is. But we have an example yesterday in the office of a person with no symptoms whatsoever who has 90+% blockage in one of her carotid arteries. Well, the criteria, and even a layperson would know, if you have a 90% blockage in a carotid artery, that probably poses a threat. So I just can't make the case more strongly that even if you feel well, you need a baseline evaluation. Any male, the guidelines are any male over the age of 50, women a little later onset of disease, but still complication rate and death rate is the same. Women over 55, 60, but there is no reason someone can't have testing after age 40. And to that point, we have autopsy data on men from the Korean War, from the Vietnam War, and from where I grew up, Jefferson County, Kentucky, trauma victims. And what's fascinating about that, and the reason for those particular populations are, the point of the studies was to look at young, healthy men under the age of 30, presumably healthy, and that data shows that a significant percentage of those individuals, approximately 20%, had at least one artery of the heart severely narrowed.
Wow.
And that's a supposedly healthy population, and that is over a period of 30 years. And the incidence of that disease had not changed over that period of time.
So you got to really wake up.
Correct.
You know, you reminded me of the fact that I've actually had a couple doctors, physicians, that have been practicing forever, and they come to me, hey, I need to get a life insurance policy finally, because they want to take care of their family and things like that, because they're working hard, and kind of find out they have cardiovascular issues. When we get their testing done, it's like, just in your own blood and stuff, it's like, man, wake up call. You're telling people these things, you're practicing it, but you're not even looking at your own body. And it's like, it's interesting to me. It's like, man, you got lower rated on your life insurance. Now you got to go take care of that. And it's like, oh man, and they realize it's like, you know what, sometimes even our own lives, we get caught up in what's going on and life. And it's like, I didn't take care of my own self.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
you take better care of your car than your body.
Exactly.
I mean, you take your car in for preventive maintenance, right? I mean, most people do.
Yeah.
But this brings up something I just thought of that's really important. It's never actually too late. Yeah. Studies show that even in people with advanced disease of the arteries, can slow the progression of disease and decrease their risk of a first or future event if they've already had one by adopting healthier habits and taking a medication regimen, the various components of which have been shown in different ways to alter the course or progression of disease.
Yeah, and then that's one cool thing about, I'm going to steer into like your primary care too a little bit. I mean, you open up this primary care practice as well, off Calvada, with Melanie Lentz. A lot of people know her.
Oh, yes.
They've been seeing her for a while and everything like that. And I'm going to butcher her name again.
Don't do that.
I know.
Marquita.
Marquita, sorry about
Last
that.
name's Arajo.
Arajo, sorry, you're better than me. And she's been around for a while too.
Yes.
And so both of them are great nurse practitioners.
She was the chief nursing officer at the hospital for many years, and then went and got her nurse practitioner degree and practiced for a year. Melanie had practiced for 3 years independently prior to joining me.
Yeah, and having those things together too.
And they're amazing, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Personally, I think they're as good as a physician. I mean, these women are knowledgeable about health and disease.
Yeah. And that helps you know, it's like, hey, do I have some heart conditions? Do I have some shortness of breath? Do I need to see Dr. Arik and stuff like that too? And getting to see your primary care doctor is important. I mean, the biggest thing, a lot of people right now are a little bit maybe timid to go see a doctor or physician, going in their office, getting this testing done. If you're even somewhat concerned about your heart, think about, hey, talk to your primary care doctor. Say, hey, maybe I need to see Dr. Arik. Call his office. If you're on a PPO, you don't need a referral usually.
Right.
Or
Medicare.
Medicare. And a lot of people worry about maybe the pricing too. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, but you'll find that it's really not.
It costs nothing if you have a co-insurance. It costs virtually nothing.
Yeah, and so it's nothing to get in through it. They want health insurance companies, people think they're evil and things like that, but they want you to go see your doctor. They want you to be healthy, because I guarantee they're going to save a lot more money in the long run if they can get you healthy.
Correct.
And so there's a lot more reward than there is disincentive or like punishment for seeing the doctor. Take the time. And a visit with you said about an hour roughly or so, or how long is a visit usually to talk to you?
With me, the visits are spaced out every 15 minutes.
Okay.
No computer in the room, so it's FaceTime, direct interaction. And most people who come to me have already been seeing a physician. It is very rare to just come in fresh with no prior records or assessments. So the groundwork for that visit has already been prepared. So a lot of the formalities of a visit that often precede an evaluation have already been taken care of. So I can focus on what is the issue or why the person was referred.
Yeah. Well, number one complaints I get, people, I saw my doctor and he just sat in front of a computer screen all day long and
I have never done
said.
that.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that's double-edged. I love the fact that we have technology nowadays, but there's also a reason why you see a doctor and not looking on WebMD.
It creates much longer hours for the doctor because all that work has to be done after hours.
Yeah.
But
so you're working for
the patient. Exactly.
You love the community.
I do.
That's the thing I like about Dr. Arik's office. Everything he does is centered around people here in Pahrump.
Correct.
And I mean, far too often, sometimes I even feel it's like, why are you even here in Pahrump? You don't really enjoy us or want to be around us. But now it's like Dr. Arik, I mean, he wants to be here. He wants to see us.
Correct. Well, I live here.
He lives here.
This is
He's
my
part
community.
of this. You see him in Walmart. You see him at the places you're at and stuff like that.
You'll see me there if it's really late at night.
Don't tell them your
closing
secret.
hours.
You don't want to have anybody see you there. They're gonna.
It's not that.
Hey,
It's
Dr.
just
Arik, I got something coming up.
work until, oh my God, the store's going to close.
Take care of your family and stuff like that too. Take care of yourself and make sure you don't have cardiovascular.
This
stuff
is much easier when you are, your children are grown and you happen to be single now. You can make 100% commitment to your work.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, and you're committed to it, and you're
Totally.
committed to Pahrump, and we love having you here and stuff too. Now, something else we talked a little bit about, going on your website, how to get a hold of you. We talked a little about your primary care practice. We talked a little about the insurances you take.
Oh, let's talk about the primary care a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So on that piece, I think what's really special and dynamic about our primary care practice is that both the nurse practitioners worked with me at the Loop Road location at the Healthcare Partners building, where all the testing equipment is located, and we worked in very close proximity. So basically, I was mentoring them in cardiology for 5 months. So they've got a special, I think, expertise now in terms of the preventive side and the early detection side, because they've had access to that testing equipment and modalities. They've been able to come to me with issues, questions, problems. What does this mean? If the echo shows this, what do I do? Who needs the stress nuclear, the PET scan? Does this person need to be referred to vascular surgery or for an angiogram? So we did all that work very closely for 5 months. So now they're in their own location, but they're very thoroughly versed in cardiovascular diagnostics and follow-up. And I think that's what sets them apart. Because let's face it, you have a general medical practice, but cardiology in that adult practice is still the #1 problem that you see, whether it's hypertension, lipids, palpitations, shortness of breath. So, and we're seeing people in their 20s and 30s. Now, granted, that's not common, but we're seeing those people with various kinds of heart and vascular disease in this community.
I think our time is up now, and I really appreciate your time to come with us today. Again, I want to reiterate, Dr. Arik can come back next week. We're going to follow up some more because he's got a plentiful of information to share with us. And again, go to our websites, battlebornfinancialadvisor.com and PaHrumpCardiology.com, and schedule an appointment. If you have questions about using your health insurance, seeing Dr. Arik, seeing his primary care, call my office and we can help you with that, and also call them and make an appointment and get to see your doctor right away. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you next week.